Okay. Good evening, everyone, colleagues. Welcome to this evening very well anticipated session in our seminar series. This is the African Science Frontiers Initiatives Science Seminar Series 7th edition, 2022. My name is Brighton Wow. I am the convener of this platform, and I have my co-convener, Dr. Eman Sop. Eman, please say a few words, then we move on.
Welcome everyone to the 6th edition of the African Science Frontiers Series 2022. We are delighted to have you all in this fruitful discussion about enablers and challenges for career development in Africa. Thanks for attendance. Thank you.
All right. So welcome. Please sit tight. We are taking a different approach. If you have been following us on this platform today, we are taking a different approach as a result of the nature of the topic of today. We want you to express yourselves. We want you to make your inputs. Let's make the conversation engaging. Share your anger, share your joy, and let's keep this going. I think sometimes why certain things remain static, perhaps we have not discussed them to their roots. So let's open up. Let's open up and discuss this. Just a few housekeeping. We are recording these sessions as usual, so everyone is muted on entering the platform so that we can have less noisy environment. The program will go as follows. We'll have a set of panelists who we kickstart with some questions from myself, and after their time is up, we'll have the commentators who will present their thoughts about the issues, and then we'll open the floor for questions and answers. During the question and answers, please just use the raise hand button on your Zoom there. Raise your hand and we will recognize you. Perhaps if the hands are so much, we may not recognize everybody due to time, but we'll just be patient with us. We will do our best. We'll have the chat box on Zoom. Use that to introduce yourselves. In course of this seminar series, several people have connected, made collaborations. So please introduce yourself and find common interest. All right. We are still expecting one of the panelists. To be frank with you, many countries in Africa are having the problem of electricity, So let's give the panelist 3 minutes. So we start in 3 minutes. You can take a cup of water, you can stretch your legs, because when the anger begins to boil, you know what to use to calm yourself, and then you come back in 3 minutes. We will start. All right. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Good evening once again, fellow brothers and sisters across the continent and beyond. Welcome again to this evening seminar series hosted by the African Science Frontiers Initiatives. My name is Bright Waro, and I'm the convener of this platform. Usually I will say this for the sake of those who are joining for the first time. The vision of ASFI, as we call it in short, is to raise the next generation of African scientists who have the right competencies to drive Africa's developmental and transformational agenda through innovative scientific research. Our mission is to instill excellence in African science through competence acquisition, capacity building, and career development. We want to contribute to African science that tackles Africa's developmental challenges. We believe that only a competent science can change our current narratives. And frankly speaking, each of us coming from different fields, you know that we are not doing optimally. And if we raise the bar, some of the issues we face as a people, we begin to find solutions to them. ASFI conduct its programs through different seminars and workshops. One of those we have here this evening, which is a monthly conversation like this, so that we can all be in the know and current in the issues that we need to be discussing. We organize hands-on courses in different areas of scientific research, capacity building, career development, science leadership, science communication. I also have a robust mentoring program. Those who have gone through our courses are enrolled in this mentoring program. And currently we have close to 500 mentees who are engaged in our mentoring programs. And then we also have research activities we do, which help us to generate issues we can bring to platforms like this or include in our courses. Over the 2 years now we started, ASFI had its second anniversary in July. We have provided 8 courses. Each of these is 5-day, about 40 hours in a week. We go through each course. I've had over 5,000 applicants, and I've trained over 1,000 colleagues from over 40 countries in Africa. So that is a very important milestone for us, and giving us the encouragement that African scientists appreciate this capacity building efforts. So this year, the Science Seminar Series are focusing on trying to spotlight different research that are advancing Africa's development. And of course, the topic we have today, trying to understand what can be some of the barriers that African scientists may be facing in doing what they need to do, especially when building or developing their career. All right, so long or short cut, barriers and enablers of career development in science in Africa. We have 4 panelists who will be really dealing with my questions this evening. And after that, the commentators will present their viewpoints. As you can see on your screen, I have Dr. Noel Jujobo. Dr. Jujobo, are you there? Are you in the platform with us? Just send me a chat, private chat, so that I know. Dr. Noel is a research officer in an organization called MIPROMALO, Local Materials Promotion Authority in Cameroon. He's a renowned scientist who has received several accolades in terms of his publication profile, in terms of scholarship ones, in terms of awards. He's an affiliate member of the African Academy of Sciences, and it's a pleasure to have him. This is not the first time he's been joining this platform, but he has agreed to join us this evening. Let's hope he's around to get with this conversation. The second person I have, who is a very close friend of the house of ASFI, is Dr. Amanda Odoi. She's a research fellow for gender research and advocacy and documentation at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Dr. Odoi, welcome. And then I have Dr. Rolayo Emmanuel. She's a principal research officer at the Nigerian Institute for, these are big names, but let me try, trypanosomiasis and onchocerciasis research in Kaduna, Nigeria. If I destroyed any of these, please, when it's your turn to speak, just correct. That would be much appreciated. And then finally on the panel is Dr. Kellen Kiembati, who has also featured severally within this platform. She is the Director, Resource Mobilization and International Programs, Karatina University. She's a woman of policy. She's a woman of due process, and she'll be joining the conversation this evening. And then I have Professor David Doku and Dr. Karen Gluich, who will be the commentators. Once the panelists have finished their job, they will present their viewpoint. Professor David Doku, a friend of mine, we studied together. He's now a professor of public health, Department of Population and Health, University of Cape Coast. Professor Doku has received a lot of accolades for what he has been doing at the University of Cape Coast. Recently, University of Cape Coast was ranked the best university in Africa and one of the top universities in the world in different areas. And he was the toppest researcher amongst those who raised the profile of the university. Dr. Glot is UNESCO UNISA African Chair in Nanosciences and Nanotechnology Laboratories, University of South Africa. If you have been following us, you will notice her presence in several past editions of this seminar series. So the floor is set, and I am happy that we will engage in this. Please feel free to put your questions on the chat box if you want to, but otherwise just keep them to the end of the program, and we will allow you to speak. All right. Okay, my panelists, you're all ready. I've not noticed the presence of Dr. Noel. But let me start with the other panelists that are present here. I have Dr. Odoi, I have Dr. Emmanuel, and Dr. Kiembati. I have one question, the same question for each of you. So why I start with Dr. Odoi, others you can start thinking of your answers. It's always difficult for the first person. All right, science career development and growth in Africa is difficult, is easy, is a mixed bag. What has it been for you? Let's get the conversation started.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof, and good evening to all of us present on the platform. So personally, I think it has been a mixed bag, especially if you are, it seems kind of difficult if you are an African trained on the African continent, where you have limited resources and access to certain platforms that you need to make yourself known and visible as a scientist. I think that the basic requirement that most of us come to the science field with is PhD. And after you've had your PhD, your publications and all that makes you visible, but a number of us come to it very late. I would say I have been
Dr. Odoi, let me stop you there. Let me stop it. Just now you have given me your answer, mixed bag. Yeah. Now take your own time to generate your reasons, because I'm coming back to really you give me the reason why you have chosen that. Let me go to Dr. Emmanuel. Rula Emmanuel, what is it for you?
For me also, it's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag in Africa.
All right. Dr. Kiembati, for you, what is it?
Thank you so much, Prof. And hello, everyone. For me, it's also a mixed one. Thank you.
Mixed bag. Goodness me. Nobody's giving smiling face to Africa. All right. Well, I don't know if there is anywhere it is easy. All right. I don't want to push the commentators now because I see they are smiling, but let me leave them. They will come and they provide their input here. All right, let's start with Dr. Odoi again. Please continue. It's a mixed bag for you.
It's a mixed bag because it's easy in certain instances for me because I've had very good mentors who have held my hands throughout the system. Right after I finished my first degree, I was assigned to, I'm in the field of gender studies. So I was assigned to one of the topmost feminists in Ghana, who's Amanda Odoi, and she showed me several spaces and how to maneuver. Before she left, she handed me over to another mentor who was also quite good and has held my hands throughout. A lot of opportunities, conferences I have attended, she's made it possible, guided me on publications. But where it has been hard for me, I think, is the geospatial politics of our science. Which science is important and whose science is valued. So if you're going to publish, for example, what subject area is of interest to the journals that you have to publish in? And sometimes you know that because you are bringing this research from Ghana, it's not as competitive as some paper that they have seen from another global space that they value. So it's a bit difficult when it comes to those things. And also the fact that a number of us as Africans, scientists trained on the continent, come to the academy and science late. We learn how to publish late. We get our PhDs very late. In some contests, people 25, 26 are PhD holders already. So they have a long period of time to ground themselves in the system and get known. But for us, some of us get PhDs as late in our late 30s, 40s. So we have a very short period where to make an impact. And so it makes it very difficult for people to know where you are from and what you're doing. Also, conference participation, for example, is one way we get to make ourselves visible. And being on the African continent, setting limitations like visa application, visa cost. Sometimes by the time your visa is ready, the conference is almost over. But then other people, even on the African continent, leaving Ghana to maybe South Africa, to be able to get your visa or the flight cost, people from Europe and the Americas will probably get easy access to those spaces earlier. So it makes it very difficult to maneuver if you don't have the goodwill to be able to find yourself in there. There's also, I have come to see, even when you're at these conferences, there's this oversimplified notion about and prejudice about the African and their abilities. So yeah, I remember I was in some conference in Spain, and then I was going to present, and I had 3 papers, and they lined up all the 3 at the same time. And so that day, people met me, they were like, "Do you think you can do it?" But there was another person that had to. Nobody from US, nobody asked her that. A few people showed up in our how do you call it, in our panel, because my presentations were more. And then after we finished, and then they heard that it went well, everybody said, "Oh, we learned that your presentation was good. So you are from Africa, right?" And I said, "Yes, I'm from Africa." And they were surprised that as an African, you could get there and make an impact. So some of this prejudice around what you are as an African, what your capabilities are, and what you can put out there makes it very difficult to project yourself and also to find yourself being noticed as an African scholar and scientist.
Oh goodness me, this went muted. But from what you have said, you mentioned issues of mentoring, some structural limitations that are natural to Africans. As an African, you face the consequences of those when you compare to other places, and of course, some external prejudices that we face as Africans. Okay, Dr. Emmanuel, what are your motivations for saying it's a mixed bag?
Okay, for me, I would like to talk about the intrinsic factors, because when it comes to African researchers, there are some attitudes that hinders us from, getting to these reasonable places. One of it is laziness. Many are slothful. Naturally, when you look at Africans, we are quite intelligent. We are creative. There are many people there with innovative ideas that can generate wholesome, stuff, but they don't really know how to give themselves the push. And then when I look at the leadership aspect, I'm sorry to say 50% of the leaders in scientific research are not really leaders. I'm very lucky to have a good leader during my academic studies in my academic aspect. But when it comes to places of duty, we have some bad leaders. And what they always do is they are threatened to see the younger ones grow. So it's always very difficult for you to even speak, because when you speak, they see like, "Oh, you've come again. You want to outdo us." So that makes many people keep quiet and makes it difficult for them to project themselves. Also, we could look at the aspect of funding from the government. It's very easy for us to create problems, to look at some problems in Africa and generate problem statement. But when it comes to executing projects to roll these problems off, it's always very difficult to get funding, even from our government. So when you look at Africa, you look at the NTDs, you look at so many of the challenges we're having, we have a lot of problems that scientists can work upon, and the outcomes, the empirical evidences they get from this research work can project them to great places, but they don't have the funds to do that. So it's a mixed bag. We are intelligent, we are creative, we have ideas, we have problems to solve, from NTDs to so many other problems, but there is no fund.
All right.
You understand? There is no fund. There is no good, leadership or mentorship arrangements, to propel scientists. So that's why I said it's a mixed bag.
Thanks for that. So your point there is that the good mentoring Dr. Odoi mentioned is not generalizable. That may be her personal experience, but it's not something that cuts across places.
Yes,
because for you, one of the issues is bad mentoring, bad leadership, laziness. That is a big one, and lack of funding. All right, Dr. Kiambati, let's hear from you what you think.
Thank you so much, Prof. Once again. Yeah, for me also it's mixed. And probably I'll start with the positive side first. Why I think it's mixed, but on the positive side. Number one, at a personal level, the first thing that I did when I launched my career into science, social science, the first thing that I did was to work on my mindset. A mindset of I must not always receive solutions from other people, that it is actually possible for me to position myself as a scientist who is providing solutions. So with that correct mindset, I was able to tell myself that I have to position myself to answer questions at the moment, and not just answering questions as a researcher, to answer questions that are at the moment, because people are looking for solutions that are troubling them at that particular point. The second thing that I did as a scientist when I launched my career was the issue of volunteerism. I was able to identify experienced scientists. I worked under them through a volunteerism program to acquire skills, to learn the skills of research, and to actually understand how research funding is sought. And finally, the other thing that has made my career as a scientist to be a positive one is the issue of intentional and targeted capacity building. I looked at myself, I identified my weak areas and my strong areas, and I was very, very intentional about the areas that I was building my capacity. So those three areas really helps to explain why I think it's a mixed issue. However, on the other hand, the issues of funding continue to be issues that make science difficult in Africa. When you look at expenditure, R&D expenditure in proportion to the annual budget that is allocated, still we have a long way to go. And what that means is that what is allocated, by the time the funds are reaching us in the universities, the amount is not even sufficient for one department. So funding continues to become an issue. And finally, the issue of gender. We know that science is time consuming, is energy consuming, is requires a lot of commitment, and it becomes even more difficult to balance the issue of family, gender roles that one has to play, and also make meaningful contribution to the scientific contributions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Odoi, you are a gender researcher. Do you echo with the last points Dr. Kembati has mentioned?
Yes, I agree very much, especially when it comes to women in science. It's a bit difficult because of family responsibilities. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that women are not a homogeneous group. So, for example, I didn't raise that because I'm not married and I do not have children, so I may not face the same challenges that Dr. Kellen may be experiencing as a married woman, or probably a woman with children who has to do family work balance. But there's one key thing that pushes women behind, because the time spent on writings, time spent on research is limited for them, as against other men in academia who may have more time on their hands to do the things that they're supposed to do to gain the visibility that they want.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to continue this forward, this particular point, because in terms of having the technical know-how, having the ability to comprehend and do research, I don't think there's a strong evidence to show that men can do science better than women. Of course, there are men-oriented fields, But do you think there is a way out in this situation for women?
Mm, mm. I think it's not about the intellectual ability, but the social roles and how it conflicts with the spaces that you can get to do what you have to do. So as a married woman, she takes care of her family and sends them to school by 8 a.m. before she goes to the office. She's supposed to get back home by 5 p.m. to come and cook and clean. Within the period, if she's an academic, for example, or a researcher, within the period she's supposed to be doing the research would be at the time she's in the office between 8 and 5 p.m. She has probably combining teaching and all that, so it makes it a bit difficult. But then if she has a partner in the same field who can have relaxed days or spend more time in the office, he is able to get more time to do the work that he's supposed to do. So this is where the difference is coming. And some of the ways we can address this is how we help women balance their family life. So for example, if a woman is supposed to go pick up her kids who are probably in preschool by 2 o'clock, there should be family-friendly work environment practices in such institutions so that they can bring the children to the office space and come back to work until they are ready to go home, to come and go and take on other roles that they have. Also, the entry requirements and publication requirements and the speed at which we require this. Sometimes I believe that there's a need for us to take into consideration how these women's private roles that they play, because then the taking care of the children looks at the sustainability of future labor force. So if women decide not to have children, it has consequences for the future of the countries that they are dealing with. So what measures can the institutions put in place? How can you create mentorship platforms where women can publish co-authorship and mentorship to hold hands throughout these spaces? These are some of the measures some institutions are putting in place. Female labs, where women can have access to this lab in their private spaces, where they are family-friendly spaces where they can bring them. And even if you can have schools closer to the workplaces of these women, where they can keep their kids and make it easy for them. Or if there are certain funding support for caregivers that women can send their spaces. In Ghana, I know in some places, there are some schools that have longer closing times so that women can close from work late and come and pick them. So instead of closing probably at 5 p.m., they can keep the kids till 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. So this woman can finish her whole day's activity and come to the school at 8 p.m. to pick up the child and know that this child is safe and I don't have anything to worry about. So it's about the institution's ability to put in some of this family-friendly work benefits and also ensuring that the institutions make space to accommodate women's social responsibilities. These are some of the ways we can address it. Because yes, intellectually, women and men are equally capable of producing the kind of science that we want, but the social roles that they play makes it difficult for them to be able to pick up some of these tasks.
All right. Unfortunately, Dr. Jobo is not part of the panel. At least we would have had a male's voice to this gender conversation. But Dr. Emmanuel, what is your viewpoint here? Do you find this point shared by Dr. Odoi and Kembati similar to your experience?
Yes, quite similar to my experience. I won't, the two of them have actually dwelt so much on the formal aspects in the workspace. I would like to confront 2008, 2010, because my husband then wanted me to resign. He didn't want a working woman. So it's usual with a family. So when you look at a typical African man, some of them get threatened, no matter how humble or whatsoever the wife is, they get threatened at that career advancement as they grow. I can remember getting some scholarships to go to the UK then to study MPH. And it was like, no, African men don't travel with women. It's the woman that will travel with the man. So I lost several opportunities because of that. I couldn't break up. I couldn't leave my family to go for studies because people were like, oh, she chose the studies over her family. So I just want to address the African men in general. Now, I'm not a feminist. I want to address the African men that whatsoever your spouse, your wife becomes in her career path is a star on your crown. It's your glory as well because she's part of you. So don't see her as a threat. Don't see her as you can't do this or you can't do that. Later, my husband got to understand that, okay, you could go for conference and I take care of the kids, or you could work or study and I could, but that's of advancement, the main one, mingling abroad and all those things. No. An African man cannot travel with an African woman. So I had to let go of so many of these international opportunities. I had to let go of so many of the opportunities.
All right.
Thank you.
Also be mindful there are men in the house, maybe more men in the house than the women. So when they start bringing their voice, let's see how it goes. But the message is going. One point Dr. Odoi mentioned was structural issues that can be created by the institutions. I mean, if you start from the local level, I don't know how much that can be welcomed, really. If a woman has children and she needs to do this, I am in the western part of the world. We don't have it, to be frank with you. And if you move to UK, it's even more challenging there. But maybe Africa can show an example. But now, Dr. Emmanuel, you are even making it more frightening when you say that African men don't want to hear such things. Anyway, okay, but let's move on. Three of you that are on this panel have your PhD as African women. You have had your PhD. How did it go for you? What were the barriers you needed to overcome? I want you to personalize this. What were some of the issues you faced, maybe related to your time, your studying, your supervision? Focus it on the PhD. Forget about the master's, the terminal degree you have had. What are some of the barriers you observe during your PhD studies? And if perhaps you have also done your postdoc, what are some of the barriers you could notice? Focus on the barriers. We'll come to the enablers and the positive side of this experience later on. Let me start with you, Dr. Kambiati.
Thank you so much, Prof. Yeah. So for me, I faced quite a number, and I think the first one is the issue of my family was so young when I started my PhD. So much such that I used to carry out my research at night when holding my young baby, because I was starting to feel guilty, like I'm not giving them the attention that they require. At the same time, I have to finish my PhD. So my family was very, very young, and it really, giving everyone attention was one of the major problems that I faced. That was the first one. My second challenge was the issue of funding. I was not able to secure a scholarship. Then I was fairly young in my career, so the funds were not sufficient to fund fund without difficulties my PhD work. So that also put a strain on me. The third challenge that I faced was the issue of lack of mentorship. No one really sat us down to tell us, this is how to navigate PhD work. This is how to manage your supervisors, because in my university then, one had to have 3 supervisors and everyone had their own say. So trying to accommodate their views, the 3 of them, was really, really difficult. And also managing, really in general, managing your supervisors, because I think for me, managing your PhD supervisors is part of the lessons that a student should be taken through. And finally, one of the difficulties that I faced was that I did not exactly see my postgraduate PhD supervision was sort of a pedagogy. It was more of a process where you follow the process. This must be done at this stage, and then at the end, this is what you should produce. So it wasn't more of a pedagogy. And for me, probably I would prefer where PhD supervision is viewed as pedagogy rather than just a process to enable people to finish their PhD work. Thank you.
All right, I go to Dr. Odoi.
Okay, for me, I didn't have a lot of challenges because
Your life was too easy, Dr. Odoi,
I
it
think
looks like.
so. I think it was quite easy for me but also because I was already used to the system. Where I had my master's is where I did my PhD, so I was quite familiar with the system. But then I was working and schooling at the same time. So like Dr. Kambiati said, I had to be working in the evening, but personally, that's my preferred time for learning. So it was okay for me. I had to stay up throughout the night and work. So but waking up to go to work was a problem. But the key thing, I had no funding. It was self-funded too. So that's one thing that I think cuts across as well. But the key thing for me was access to literature. So I was working in a field which is not quite researched in Ghana. That was masculinities. So and a lot of the literature you have to pay for. So every time I was struggling to get access to the required literature until I got the opportunity to go to Finland to do a fellowship. And everything I needed, I got to. So I maximized the opportunity to get as much as I wanted in the 3 months before I came back to work with it. So that's one way I dealt with some of the challenges that I had.
All right, to you, Dr. Emmanuel.
Thank you, sir. I had a lot of challenges. I still have a PhD studies ongoing, but looking back, I had a lot of challenges. First is institutional policies. I think I had my master's, I rounded up my master's in 2012, and I picked the form for PhD studies then. But there came a policy in my place of work that an embargo has been placed on study leave and study generally. So we had people that could sneak to school, they were actually going, and what it means is you come back with such certificates and it will not be recognized. So from 2014 till date, the embargo on study leave has not been lifted. So by the time I started my PhD, I was one of the people that sneaked to school. And, it was difficult balancing the office with studies, official activities with studies. It was quite difficult balancing the two. Then secondly, leadership. Leadership was another problem I had. I'm not afraid to say I had a boss that wasn't interested in my advancement, because I could remember showing the boss that I got an admission to study PhD, and the next thing was transfer her out of my department. She's going to school, I don't want to see her. This is a mother figure, someone you will expect to see you through the stage. So I lost what they call, official proper leadership or mentoring, but God compensated me with good supervisors. The 3 advisors I had were wonderful people, and they saw me through it, and they're still seeing me through it, even up till this moment. Another challenge I had was funding. It was difficult raising funds, especially for those of us that are field epidemiologists. You have to go there, taking samples, come back for your molecular analysis, no grants, nothing. Because when you knock doors of, all these grant providers, they refer to past funds they gave to your institution and was not properly managed, was used to build houses, buy cars, enjoy the luxury of life. So it was quite difficult for me to knock on NTD doors and get funding. For the home front, it was okay for me because what I did was to pay for what could hinder me. Home front, is it school runs? Okay, pay for school bus. Is it meals? Okay, pay for breakfast and lunch in school, just come back home for dinner. And that helped me. So, but for leadership, for institutional policies, no, it was a terrible experience. It was a terrible experience. So like if I'll conclude from February till date, I have a PhD running currently. From February till date, none of us could go to school. Over 100 staff in my institute couldn't go to school. And we're all research scientists. Some of us have been stagnated for about 2-3 years because we have not presented, further studies. So we were all called back to return back to the office from school, and nobody could go to school. So it's always very difficult. There are some institutional policies that are terrible. I really don't understand what we do to ourselves in Africa.
All right.
There are institutional policies that are terrible.
All right.
And they are one of the barriers.
All right. Okay. So we have the institutions to bear all the blames. The institutions will bear all the blames. Anyway, I don't want to pinch you too much. Let's leave it for the institutions to bear all the blame. I hope there are institutional leaders here so that they can fire back. Yeah, Professor Doku is now an institutional person. Let's see what he will. He has that experience of those students who are there. Okay, I mean, it's not all bad. At least there are some things that we can say will always help us to appreciate the memory of those days, things that went well, things that we appreciate. Okay, so what are some of the enablers? Because eventually you finish it. You finish it, you're working with it. You didn't finish it and say, well, to hell with academia. In fact, Dr. Kambiati had to come into academia from the private sector, isn't it? Okay, so let's start with you, Dr. Kambiati, again. What were some of the things that really went away from your experience you can share with us?
Thank you so much, Prof. Some of the things that have helped to shape and to support my scientific career is one, the issue of capacity building. I have intentionally and very, very meticulously chosen the areas to strengthen my capacity. Usually what I do, I write a plan for 3 years. And I ask myself, what do I want to do the next 3 years? What skills do I require? What is missing? And then I acquire skills around the areas that are missing. Second thing that I have done is to intentionally choose collaborators to work with, particularly African scholars in diaspora. I have intentionally looked for them, depending on what I want to do, and engage them, sought opportunities, ask them to mentor me around the areas that are wanting, and work with them in a very, very intentional way. Also, forming teams where everyone is bringing a particular strength to the team. Because I can assure you as a scientist, one cannot be all-rounded. There are areas you will check and see, no, this area I am not strong. So for me to be able to carry out this research, I'll require this type of a person. So the issue of forming formidable teams to help to carry out research as a team is what has helped me. Thank you.
All right. Over to you, Dr. Odoi. Of course, we know your story. Everything went well, but tell us.
No, it's not that everything went well, but I think in thinking about the good parts, I think I had great support systems, unlike my co-panelists. So my supervisors were very friendly. Anytime you needed to see them, they were ready to see you. Luckily for me, also my supervisor was
what can we do? I still have a long
was my head of department. So and then the research area I was working on was also of interest in my department. So she was ready to give all the support that I needed to finish up early and make a case for it. She also instituted this structure where all her graduate students had bi-weekly presentations. So we had monthly presentations. You come and give an update on your progress every month. And in doing that, we read the works of other colleagues. So it opened up my mind to certain a lot of areas where I was not paying attention to. So I was co-learning along with my colleagues. Also in my institution, in my department where I was doing the studies, we had progress report. As graduate students, you need to every year report, so then you are always supposed to be ahead of your task. I also had an opportunity to go for a PhD internship fellowship in Finland. For me, that was a turnaround. even though my supervisor was putting in all these measures, I didn't advance as quick as I came back from Finland, because over there, I had 3 months full time to myself, not working. You just go to the office and all you did was reading. I had access to all the literature I wanted. There were summer schools I participated in, and I learned a lot of methodological issues from other people, and you had people making inputs into your work. So it got me some clarity. And in my institution, if you're working as well, there's something called study leave. Even if it's not funded, you're not given any sponsorship, you declare your interest that you're studying, and they reduce your workload. So you are not having so much workload as you are as a regular staff. So that's some of the things I benefited from that made my life as easy as I'm saying right now. So these are some of the measures that were put in place to make it quite easy for me during my PhD study.
All right. Dr. Emmanuel, please tell us what has been going well.
Okay. What went well for me is I was lucky to get funds from friends and family to push on, and from savings, loans. And then I got some agencies donated some diagnostic kits that I'm using for my molecular studies analysis. And another thing that went well is the home front, because I wasn't having any disturbances from home. There were no disturbances from home. Like I said, I paid for hindrances that could come from the home front. So if it's going to be the school runs, if it's going to be the cooking time, meal preparation time and everything, I got that cleared by paying for people that could do that in my place. Then another thing that went well was supervision. The advisory team were wonderful. They were great mentors. They allowed me to have full expression of the ideas I had, and they were able to add their own knowledge for me to be able to achieve what I was targeting. So that's what I had that went well.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Kiambati, you want to make additional point here. Please go ahead and let's move to the next question.
Thank you, Prof. Two of my issues that worked very well when I was doing my PhD, one of my supervisors was actually supervising the 4 of us. So what he did, he organized us as a team, and therefore we become each other's accountability partners. So we actually became each other's accountability partners. We ensured no one was left behind. We ensured that we supported each other in our areas of weaknesses. We ensured that we shared databases of research materials. And for me, that was something I learned from that supervisor that I apply even today as I supervise my students. The other thing that worked very well for me, my institution where I was taking my PhD, they had access to very high profile journal, research materials. So for me, that worked for me very well. I did not struggle to find research materials around the area that I was researching. So that worked very well for me. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, we're getting closer. Time is flying, but we have to see how we can end the panel discussion. But I have 2 more questions for you. And in 1 minute, each of you, with your experience or experiences you have had barriers, you have had enablers, you have had good moments, not so good moments. I wouldn't call them bad moments, but not so good moments, not as you would have wished. But putting all together, do you think as an African scientist, you are globally competitive? If yes, why? If no, why not? Just 1 minute, then we'll move on. Dr. Odoi, start with you.
Yes, I would say I'm globally competitive. Especially if I define that to mean the ability to equally engage in scientific discourses, research, knowledge production. Yeah, because I'm able to equally publish in platforms where other global scholars publish. I'm also able to engage in conference participation in the same platforms that they engage. Also teach and mentor other graduate students. So I would say yes, I have a profile that fits what a scientist is required globally. I have a terminal degree, and so yes, I'm globally competitive.
All right, Dr. Emmanuel.
Yeah, I'll say I'm globally competitive. In all aspects a researcher could think of, when it comes to innovations, it comes to problem solving, it comes to ability to generate empirical evidences from research works, and also achieving, acquiring collaborations internationally. Although the collaborations are not fund related, but I've been able to participate with renowned groups of people that mentor me till date on some NTD control. I've been able to, in trainings that has enhanced my career advancement as well. So I'm globally competitive.
All right, Dr. Kiambati.
Thank you. My answer to that question is yes. The reason I say yes is because out of my research work, I am able to produce compelling, convincing, and credible research evidence that has what it takes to solve the challenges that human face today. Also, because I'm able to do collaborations with people from all over the world, therefore, I believe that I'm globally competitive. Thank you.
All right, so we have no problems then. The African scientist has no problem, because with what we have, we can do anything anybody can do anywhere in the world. Is it? Our libraries are fully equipped. We have all the journal subscriptions. We have the collaborations we need to do that. We have the funding. We have our laboratories equipped. Is it just only at the personal level, or this is that we are all as a workforce prepared? All right, it's food for thought. Let's think about it. But finally, the three of you, I know that you have been part of ASFI for some time, and you have been involved in our ongoing initiatives, collaborations, and so on and so forth. Has that made any positive impact in the way you think your scientific journey should have been? 30 seconds, each of you. Let me start with you, Dr. Emmanuel. Your encounter with ASFI, how has that impacted you, your career?
It has been a wonderful one with ASFI. I've been through so many of the ASFI trainees, and they have been quite helpful for me, both academically and even in the place of work. I would also like to say that it has also prepared me to be able to mentor others. It has really made me become more impactful in raising next generation scientists. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Odoi, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
I would say for me, my confidence as a scientist, because identifying issues that hitherto I wasn't aware of has equipped me to be more confident. So, my grant writing, doing the grant writing course and also the reproducibility course for me has been very important in my publications, because I'm more aware every time when I'm writing what's important to put there, how to make other people understand. And so for me, ASFI has been very, very impactful in my scientific life as an academic as well. Thank you.
All right, finally, Dr. Kiambati.
Thank you, Prof. For me, it has been a transformation, not just a change or an impact. I have practically been transformed through ASFI. Out of these ASFI trainings, I have been able to win several grants. And on top of that, I've been able to organize international research collaborations, particularly using systematic review as an approach to research. So for me, it has been a transformational journey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, our panelists, for the candid opinions. Sorry, our time has not allowed us so that you can vomit. There was no expression of anger. I thought the place would be boiling, but well, maybe the audience is preparing. Let's see what happens. But I have loved this conversation, and I hope you have also done so. But you know, there are really many aspects we could cover, and we'll try to get this conversation going forward later on. But thank you, Dr. Amanda Odoi, Dr. Rolayo Emmanuel, and Dr. Kellen Kiambati, our panelists for this evening. Now, I will turn the hot seat to the commentators. I will start with Professor David Doku. Hearing all has been said, and with his own experience, he has had career both abroad and in Ghana, to share his own thoughts of what he thinks of these issues. Please, the floor is yours, Professor Doku.
Thank you very much, Bright. So grateful for the opportunity to be on this platform, and I've really been inspired and challenged also by hearing the panelists discussing the challenges and opportunities for career development in Africa, especially in the area of academia, research and academia career development. I carefully resisted the temptation of presenting something because I wanted it to be a natural discussion with what is going on, and then we can comment on that. But while I was listening to the panelists, I put a few things down, which maybe I can share later. But the challenges are there, even though they are not across board, but we can pick a couple of them. But I want to start by looking at what one of you said about the issue regarding the preparation of the mindset. That you prepare your mindset to answer relevant questions in your area. I think for me, that is the starting point. You have to know the terrain that you are in as an academic. As an academic, you must know what is today's nature of the academic terrain, whether in Africa or across the globe or wherever. What are the sort of questions, especially when it comes to research and writing, what are the sort of questions that are receiving attention across the globe? For me, that is the starting point. You must know what you are entering into. Once you know what you are entering into, that also means that you are familiar with the opportunities and the challenges that are likely to come your way. I've heard a couple of the challenges, so I'll start with that first. We were discussing about late entry into the academic training, the process itself. That Dr. Odoi mentioned the late trainings that elsewhere people enter into the academia a bit earlier, so they are, by the time they get into their mid-age, they already experienced and they are able to do a lot of things. That is true. But also nowadays, probably whether intentional or coincidental, because of ability to find job after undergraduate, now we have a few persons who are moving straight from undergraduate into the postgraduate and then ultimately the PhD. And so that barrier is being bridged and so on and so forth. But it's still there. And that also creates another barrier that even for those who enter early, because the tradition has been that people enter late, for those who enter early, they are perceived as too ambitious. Because I remember somebody said to me that, oh, you have a lot of time on your side. Wait, if we don't take care, we are promoting you as a senior lecturer already. If we don't take care, we'll be paying somebody as a professor for 20 years. What wrong does it make to pay somebody as a professor for 20 years? And bright you are there. ANSI, we met ANSI in 2006 or 2005 when he was a professor. And I don't think ANSI is staying, I don't think ANSI is 60 years now. So you can imagine how many years ANSI has been a professor from 2005 that we met him, and it's not yet 60 years. You can. So that notion that this is a space for persons who are grown-up, persons who are getting gray hair, also add on to the fact that traditionally most people enter late, and so they are not working as fast as it is in the other area. One thing that struck me also was the issue about slothfulness, bad leadership. One of you mentioned about bad leadership. Well, I think Africans are very hardworking, but I cannot dispute that if there are a few persons or a few areas where we are not as intentional, I'll use the word rather intentional. We are not as intentional about those things as may be in other areas. And we need to work on that because nothing happens by chance. Intentionality is very key. And so in what we do, we need to be very intentional. So that lack of intentionality could be perceived as laziness. In many other areas, for example, in the area of writing and publication, getting on to what really is the key and the cutting edge area to venture into research on. If you are not intentional about those things, they may be perceived as being lazy or slothful on those other areas. So we need to look at the issue about intentionality in this area. Funding is really a challenge. It's not only with Africa, but Africans' challenge in regards to that is quite huge. Huge because in many places there are funding pools available nationally, locally. So if I would say locally, that enables when and Bright can bear the witness. Almost every PhD student in Finland might have competed for maybe a foundation grant or something. By the time you go through, you're already aware that you need to be on the funding list, you need to compete. And there are a number of so many, especially for the native, there are so many funding opportunities that can give them the opportunity to test their proof of concept. And once they get those smaller monies, it's in research, it's like what the Bible says, he who has more will be given, and he who does not have, even the little that he has, will be taken away from him. So once people are able to leverage, to get the small grants and leverage on that, there are opportunities to get bigger grants and so on and so forth. But I'll come to how we can address some of these issues later. The mindset, preparing the mindset is a lot of things that have been highlighted regarding the barriers specifically for women. I have done some inequality studying in one or two areas, and also gender inequality. I think it cut across, but probably because of the family expectations in our part of the world, it may weigh a bit heavier on women. But I think a new generation is coming up that recognizes the women role also in developing their career. I live in a neighborhood with some of our colleagues who are both in academia. The one is a professor, the woman is a professor, the man is a professor, the woman is a doctor. And there is a shift with these social responsibilities and roles. But I cannot deny that it's still to the disadvantage of the women. And we need to work on that through policies, for example, institutional policies, intentional institutional policies that will create. And elsewhere, they do that. You know, if you look at the funding, say, okay, if the postdoc is 5 years or 4 years after you did your PhD, then for women, they look at the maternity break and all that, and then they add. So the women, for example, could be 7 years after your PhD. I think we have to be looking at that. I don't know how that could work, for example, in the career progression in that way. I don't know how that could work in terms of the number of publication or other auxiliary work that a woman could do also to get promoted. But I can assure you about a generation of young people are rising up who are identifying that women and men can equally play their roles at home. In my home, for example, well, mine may be a bit unique because we are from different cultural settings, but we encourage one another to pursue his or her ambition to the highest level without any barriers, and so on and so forth. Institutional structures, huge ones. Yes, institutional structures are there, which need to be worked on. As I said, one of the issues is not really like intentional to put barriers on the way of people or women, for example, but it has been the tradition, and we need to, as we engage, even this forum, we are engaging and talking about it, and we are actually moving to the situation where we can begin to challenge policies that are existing and even propose new ones, new policies in that regard, so they can help. Study leave now, it's unfortunate that you mentioned that the issue of a study leave, the degree will not be recognized when you get it. That is very unfortunate. But actually, now the move is towards not taking the traditional leave to go and study. Now that is the move towards that. Provided that when you come back, the degree will be recognized. It's very difficult. In Ghana, for example, in the Ghana health system, my own niece has been struggling for several years to get study leave. And I told her, look, there are distance programs, there are weekend programs that are running. You don't need to get study leave out of the place when you are actually out of the workplace to go and study. No. Then now there are certificates that are credible online, unlike and COVID has reinforced this kind of. Look at the great work that Frontiers, Bright and colleagues are doing. I mean, you can get a lot of knowledge, a lot of certificate, a lot of career development and advancement without necessarily physically moving, signing up and say that I'm on study leave, I'm away for 3-4 years, because somebody is looking for a job. Even when you are granted, when you go, you move out of that place, by the time you come, somebody else has occupied a space and probably doing so. We should be very innovative in how we can go around this issue. The only issue is that the institution should be ready to accept, even when you are physically moved out of the place to go and study. They should be able to acknowledge when you get a degree. They should make that room, and I think that will be beneficial for both the candidates and then the institution. Whether we are globally competitive, I'm trying to chronicle the barriers, and then I'll come to enablers. Whether we are globally competitive, I am inspired by the responses that came up. Wherever we are, we should aim at being globally competitive. And I'm happy that we identify ourselves as being globally competitive, being able to fill the global space despite our challenges. What it means is that if we are able to address some of the hurdles that we have identified, we'll be able to make a lot of impact on a global stage, and that is heartwarming. So, but I don't know if I should continue with the enablers.
I will give you 5 minutes to finish up.
We also with the enablers.
You have a long list.
Great. No, not really. Yeah.
All
so,
right. So just go ahead and finish. Then I'll bring Karen over.
Despite the barriers that we have listed, there are huge opportunities here for us to explore. Very huge opportunities. One, now we can collaborate, we can create a network wherever we are. We can create a network wherever we are. And we should be able to link up with people wherever they are. Today, if I'm looking for a paper and is asking, the journal is asking me to subscribe or something, I can send that title to a colleague elsewhere and they can get me the paper, my portal. Of course, there are some constraints with that because if I want to do systematic review or meta-analysis, for example, I cannot send all the papers. Even if I don't know even the papers that exist because they are locked up, then it's difficult. There are barriers. But when we network, we'll be able to overcome some of the barriers. We should choose our network carefully so that we can be able to overcome some of these barriers that we have mentioned. Then there are issues with funding. As I said, we should be able to engage from our departmental level, where very soon, or probably some of us are sitting on departmental board, we are sitting on faculty board, college board, and all that. We should be able to challenge people to set aside some small money that can give us some seed money to do research. And when we leverage on that, we can be able to apply for external grants. But we should also challenge our government to set money aside for funding. Things cannot happen. Africans must take a responsibility for their own development in the area of science, innovation, and development. And they have to set money aside to do that. We have to champion that. I think Nigeria is doing well. Ghana, we are not doing so great in that area. We need to have a national fund that can support research and innovation in that area. So my issue is that what really is success? What is success? Somebody says success is relative. It's in the eyes of the beholder. Defining success can be varied. So varied. What do we consider as our peers? Who do we consider as our peers? Is our next office door, our neighbor? How do we define success or career progression? Is it institutional? Is it national? Is it international? We need to focus that. One thing that I think that is a great opportunity that we have as academics in Africa is that we have a pathway. We have almost a definite career pathway that is defined and for us. Elsewhere, as far as you know, if you are not lucky to get on tenure track, then your career progression is really in trouble. You are on funding here and there. But here, once you are picked as an academic, you know you move from either assistant lecturer to associate professor to professor or the other ranks in between. It's almost defined. And that means that we can plan. We know that this is something we are in. The path is marked up for us. So we can plan all the things that we need to do to be able to succeed. Elsewhere, it's not like that. You are not sure, because tomorrow, if there's no funding, you are shown the way out. So you cannot really plan for the long term. But we are in a very, very good situation that we can plan for the long term because we know by our appointment letter, our career pathway is almost marked for us to retirement. if you want, I don't know if it happens the same way across the continent, but in most parts of Africa, when you get in academia, it's almost like your career pathway is marked for, so you can plan very well to overcome some of these challenges. I think for us, if I would say in a summary, this is the greatest opportunity because you know where you are heading to, and you know the barriers that are on there, and so you can plan to meet. I think I'll come back later with a few other comments. Right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Professor Doku, for those insightful summary and inputs. Yeah, the conversation is generating also input on the comment section, which is really good. Please keep it coming. Let me go to Dr. Karen Glut. Please, the floor is yours now.
Yes, Prof. Bright, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here. And thank you very much to all the panelists for their very valuable comments. As also Professor Doku for adding some additional and also very useful comments to the comments that the panelists gave. Please excuse me for not putting on my video. My internet is very unstable because we're having load shedding here at present. So I prepared a short presentation. Let me just share my screen. I hope I'll keep to 5 minutes just to add to some of the comments, and obviously some of the comments that I'm going to share with you and the guidelines and some of the advice from my side how to overcome some of these barriers were already addressed by some of the panelists, but I'm just going to add some points. So my name is Karen Kluter, and I'm a senior fellow affiliated to the UNESCO Africa Chair in Nanosciences and Nanotechnology here in South Africa at the University of South Africa. So I think, let me just minimize this. I think a lot of the problems in Africa, I think also each of our individual experiences vary a lot from country to country, from person to person, and also based on the institutions where we are based at. As some of the panelists already highlighted, there's a lot of institutional policies, politics that can affect career development, lack of funding. But I think what is really, really important to grow Africa and African research is education. And this starts already at the very, very, very grassroots level. But unfortunately, there is a lot of barriers. There's a lack of funding, as most of the panelists pointed out, and also Prof. Doku. Learning materials are sometimes not available. You have a classroom environment that is not optimal for learning. There's conflict. Children have to work far distances to universities and schools to learn and to grow. Some of them face hunger. That makes learning very challenging. And there's also cultural restrictions, exclusion sometimes of people with disabilities, stigmatization towards, for example, some students with HIV, or sometimes we are the wrong gender. And in that specific point, I would like to highlight, like one of the panelists also very clearly highlighted, that sometimes women face a lot of challenges. Also, sometimes men face challenges. So I think there's across the genders, each gender will have their unique challenge that they have to come. And for these challenges to be overcome, I think there should be more collaboration between different stakeholders within Africa, also between different countries in Africa. There should be more collaboration within and also outside of Africa. For example, in improving education at the very grassroots levels, communities have an important role. Indigenous leaders, the media, especially government, in providing funding. We need to learn to share our research more with governments so that they can see what we are doing and fund us. And also policyholders should become more involved in our research. Now, as a young person, when you start out in research, it's very important to think about your career trajectory. There will be challenges, but these challenges may be more easily overcome when you plan. When you finish your studies, you need to think, do you want to go and work? Do you need to go for further studies, or do you want to take a break? And planning of your whole career is extremely important. There will be challenges that comes up. You need to think about, okay, if I don't have funding, how will I overcome this? Where can I apply for funding? Can I apply for international funding? What opportunities are available for African scholars? There are many. In planning your career, it is very, very important in understanding who you are. If you are a woman, you need to think of family responsibilities. There's a lot of challenges for women, same for men also. You need to think about this. You need to know yourself, your strengths, your values. What do you want to study? What research do you want to do? And Africa is very unique because it has a unique set of problems, a unique cultural setting, everything about Africa is very unique. It has problems that are nowhere else found in the world. And this we can take to our advantage. We must learn to do research focused on our problems, use our indigenous knowledge and build on that and work with communities to solve African problems. You need to think also about the type of research that you are interested in. What is hot research? What is trending? What will get you funding? Then you have to make choices. You have to think about contingency plans. For example, funding is a big problem in Africa. Accessing labs that has good and operational equipment, that is a problem. You will need to think about, how can I overcome this barrier? Can I visit overseas labs to do my experiments? What funding is available to attend that? You learn to also know how to write your CV. There's a difference between, for example, applying for academic position and for the industry position. Learn how to address that, how to write a proper cover letter, either for when you submit an article to a journal, when you apply for a new job, when you apply for funding. Learn how to have that. And obviously gaining as much as opportunities out there as possible. As most of the panelists also pointed out, attend different opportunities, do internships, do job shadowing, go and do postdocs overseas. So there are many opportunities out there. Take them, grab them, attend workshops, learn. When you focus on understanding yourself, what do you want in your career and your life? You have to think about, what do you want in a scientific career? Do you want stability? Do you want security? What is your sense of purpose? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to do basic research that can be applied? Will the research be linked to the sustainable development goals? Or what is your purpose with this research? And choose something that you are passionate about, because when you are passionate about something and you want to make a difference, you will try and overcome these barriers more easily. Do you want to be a leader? The panelists also pointed out that leadership in Africa is a big problem. So as a youngster, as a young researcher, attend as many leadership workshops as possible. Learn how to effectively lead a team to be their best, right? There's a lot of resources out there. And also what one of the panelists also mentioned is having good mentors, people to look up to guide you. This is extremely important. Talk to academics, talk to other postgraduate students, talk to course advisors, talk to career advisors, and learn. If you want to go into teaching, you know, what is the teaching experience like? Gain classroom experience. If you want to go into sales, learn what that environment is about. And obviously in my slide here, the science career in Africa and also elsewhere is very diverse. You can go into teaching, academics, you can go into the private sector, you can apply, you can do patents, you can also go into scientific journalism, scientific publishing. So there's a lot of different options. But now in summary, when you look at your career and how to progress forward and how to overcome challenges, as I said, it's very important to plan. Think already at your very early career stage, what is the field that you prefer? What do you get excited about? How can your research fix a problem within your country? Also, does it link up with basic and applied research? Is it linked to the SDG goals? Read the literature, this is important, and use the correct keywords when you want to research a topic. You also have to use diverse research search engines, and the keywords you use for looking into your literature is extremely important. Funding. There was mentioned also there's a lack of funding in Africa, and this is a huge, huge problem, gaining access to funding, gaining access to opportunities. But there are a lot of opportunities on the TWA's webpage, through the OVSD, through DAR, through Marie Curie. The internet is full of opportunities with fellowships, funding opportunities dedicated to collaborating with African scholars. Then get the best education and postdoc experience as possible. I once attended a conference, and I remember one of the panelists mentioning that in China, as soon as a fellow gets his PhD, he climbs on the first plane to USA to go and do a postdoc, gain experience abroad, and then come back with that knowledge to build his country. Very important, get good mentors. You want a good mentor and a supervisor, someone who will be invested in developing your career and who is going to grow your career. But don't only focus on help from your supervisor or your mentor. You need to develop and focus on developing yourself. Attend as many conferences and workshops as possible. Workshops focus on leadership, on how to finance a team, a lab, how to do research ethics, and how to apply research ethics in your work, how to write properly and efficiently, and how to publish, how to apply for funding applications, more about intellectual property. So there's a wide range of workshops related to research that is important to attend. Then very important, be a member of societies. You can gain a lot of experience, a lot of opportunities through membership of societies, and publish. You have to publish. Also, what is very important, that sometimes when we go abroad, we have this kind of imposter syndrome that many other people from other countries also sometimes experience. But it's important to believe in ourselves, that we come from a unique background and that we have something very unique to offer, right? Learn also, this I already mentioned previously, learn how to write a good CV, understand your career researches, and very, very important, know your lab environment. Know the institution that you are going to work for. What are their research policies? How will their leaders lead you? This is important to find out to grow your career, because if you're going to find yourself in a toxic environment, this is going to hold you back. And very important, take care of your health. Learn how to handle failure. There is going to be failure, but this can always be overcome. If you are really passionate about what you do, you can achieve your goals and celebrate your achievements. I've also included here some very useful resources, some websites. These are two very good books, Charting a Course for a Successful Research Career. And this is a very excellent book. A PhD is not enough. So this is very good reading material. This one is also good, Planning a Scientific Career in Industry. So there's many, many opportunities out there, many workshops, many opportunities for funding. Look at it, look for opportunities that are specifically targeting African colleagues, and then apply for this. Keep on applying, keep on growing, keep on getting good mentors, keep on going to good conferences, keep on going to good workshops, and I'm sure you'll achieve great success. So thank you very much. Let me stop the share now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kulete. This is very much appreciated and very
Most
insightful.
welcome.
I appreciate your input to this. All right. Our time is really flying. Please let me see if you have, those who have questions, just raise your hand. Let's see the number of people that, please, not questions or comments to repeat what has been said. Let it be necessary. Let's see your hand before I go back to Professor Doku to conclude. Does anyone have any urgent question to add to what has been said so far? All right, Professor Doku, if you can conclude so that we can do some summary before we close.
Issue is that there are challenges, and there are challenges everywhere. And I think the take-home message is that we have to plan to overcome those challenges because we know the terrain we are. But also there are opportunities. Like my co-commenter said, Africa presents a lot of opportunities, research opportunities all around us. And so we also have to tap into those opportunities. And the challenges, we can overcome them by collaborating. We have to collaborate with people, even within the country. It will amaze you that there are facilities, if you are a basic scientist, there are facilities that can analyze your sample right in the other university, probably in your city, probably even within the same university, probably even in the next department or in the next school or in the next college. You need to collaborate both locally, nationally, and internationally. That is very, very important. But not be lost in the group. This is very, very important. Now, there are a lot of groups emerging, writing together and all that. It's all good, but don't be lost. Just don't be one of the many. I put it this way. We in the group, we have the I and the we, and they are complementary. The I is the you. The I is essential. You have to keep your I whilst you maintain the we. Your I represents your personal development. It represents your self-esteem. It represents your motivation. It represents your involvement and performance and quality of work within the we. The I represents your belief in self, your quest for accomplishment. The we represent commitment and allegiance to the team. Even as you collaborate from wherever, you should find your I within your collaboration. You should be able to have something that is yours. You own it. You should be able to have something that you can hold on to and you can say that this is mine. So there are opportunities. Although there are challenges, there are as many opportunities that can help us to develop as scientists or as academics in our continent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Glote and Professor Doku for your insightful comments. We appreciate this. And I don't know if all the issues have been exhausted, but we will keep tab on this in our future programs to continue to raise these issues because from the comment I see here is generating some interest. And thank you, our audience, for staying with us until now. We'll soon finish. Please see what my colleague Eman is putting on the chat box. She's putting a link to the evaluation of this edition. Please, we would like you to fill it so that we can have your opinion. It helps us to really organize ourselves and improve what we are doing on this platform. As you can see on the screen, ASFI is here for you. It's a platform to provide opportunities for collaboration. I can tell you several colleagues have come together here. Some have won grants together. Some are publishing together. Some are doing different things together without meeting themselves before. So collaboration, networking, capacity building through the different training and courses we have, mentoring, and many more. It's a platform that we see people excited to be part of, because it is supporting the ingredients of the conversation we are having this evening. Look out for future activities of ASFI towards the end of this year. As we announced previously, we'll be introducing the our membership registration to ASFI, so that you can become a bona fide member, and we can tailor our opportunities to you. So please look out for those activities. And if you are not on our mailing list, put your email on the chat box, and we include you so that you receive our information for next emails we send. Several of you have completed the volunteer form for ASFI activities. Just to assure you that we are working on it, and we'll be contacting you as soon as possible to let you know in which area you can be playing a role. Please don't just put your name there just for putting sake. You see, what we have discussed this evening, many of those skills, many of those exposures, many of those ingredients you need to grow come from doing certain things. And scientific activities like these, putting your time into it, have a way of helping you to grow in those areas. Please stay with us. We'll come back to you as soon as possible to let you know the role you'll be playing. All right. And finally, the next Dr. Warren's research tips and tricks, scientific failures, how they help us to grow. Dr. Glote mentioned appreciating failures. And this is what, even in our African culture, failure is seen as a negativity. But in the scientific fair, it is really a mandatory path of the process. How does it come? How do we deal with it? How do you manage it? How can they contribute to your growth? That will be our next research tips and tricks, and that comes up the coming Friday, 30th of September. Join us. You don't need to register for this one. Invite your colleagues and join the conversation. It's just 1 hour of tips and tricks. All right. Thank you very much for this evening, and I hope that you have enjoyed the session as I have done. I have really enjoyed it. Let's keep the conversation going, and I hope that we will find a way to advance from where we are going in the right direction. All right, Eman, do you want to take pictures? There are many good-looking faces here. I think you would like to capture. Let me unmute everybody so that you can raise your voice if you want to raise your voice. Show your picture. If you want to show your picture, Eman would like to capture your faces.
Thank you, Dr. Bright.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bright.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bright.
Thank you for coming.
Professor Bright and team.
Thank you, Dr. Bright.
Thank you,
Dr. Bright.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bright, it's okay.
Thank you.
It's good to see many of you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
See you next time.
Bye.
Emma will capture your voice in the picture if you talk too
We are
much.
grateful you're doing.
Have a wonderful day. Wonderful night.
Yes, have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Wonderful presentation.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Wow.
All right, Emma, are you ready?
Few have their camera open.
Only if you have their cameras open. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. And we'll see you on Friday.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Wait,
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
few minutes to take comments.
Bye.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
We appreciate you for all the good work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
I really appreciate this seminar. Okay.
Very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, it was very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Emma, you're good?
Yes, right. Yes.
Okay. Did you copy the comments? Yeah?
Thank you, everyone.
Emma, did you copy the comments?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So there are some emails there.
Yes, I understand.
All right. Thank you very much and have a good week.
Thank you.
Professor Doku, and our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate
much.
you.
Everybody,
Yes.
thank you.
Have a good week ahead.
Yeah, same to you. Both
Bye.
great. Thank you. Bye for now.